Welcome to True God Code. If this is your first time here, we study biblical prophecy using a structured decipherment system built entirely from the text itself. No traditions, no assumptions. Just the math, the calendar, and the evidence. If that is your kind of thing, like and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. We are going to need you paying attention in the months ahead. Let's begin. Last month we gave you 4 things to watch: Islamabad, Kushner, the Hormuz, the calendar. Here is where each one stands right now. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. 20% of the world's oil supply cannot move. Brent crude hit $126 a barrel this week. The United States Navy is blockading Iranian ports. The man who is nominally the supreme leader of Iran has not been seen publicly in 61 days. And CENTCOM is now briefing the president on a second wave of strikes. That is the Iran picture. While all of that is unfolding, on April 17th, something else happened that most people missed. A palm-biometric payment system went live. You walk up to a terminal, you place your palm down. You buy something using nothing but your body, authenticated against an iris scan you registered when you signed up. No card, no phone, no cash. Just you. 18 million people are already enrolled in this system across 160 countries. And there is one more thing. The Pope and the President of the United States are in an open public war with each other. That same Pope quietly confirmed he is planning to stand in Jerusalem in 2033. Last month we made 15 predictions. Tonight we score every single one of them. Publicly, plainly, no softening. Then we show you what it all means. We do not interpret, we decipher, then we watch. The reckoning. Last month we made 15 predictions. We are going to go through all of them. What we got right and why, what we got wrong and why. Let us start with the wins. The hits and partials. Prediction 1. Islamabad concludes without a comprehensive deal. Hit. We called this because the gap between both sides was too wide to close in one round. The best either side could walk away with was an agreement to keep talking. That is exactly what happened. 14+ hours at the table. No deal. A 2-week extension. A commitment to meet again. Exactly as predicted. Prediction 2. A joint statement is issued through Pakistan. Hit. Pakistan needed something to show for hosting the highest-level US-Iran talks in 47 years. A joint statement was the minimum viable outcome for everyone in that room. Confirmed. Prediction 3. Israel and Lebanon hold direct peace talks in Washington, first in modern history. Hit. We called this because Iran's degradation removed the primary obstacle that had kept Lebanon from engaging Israel directly for decades. Hezbollah's patron was in a ceasefire. Its new supreme leader was invisible. The barrier was temporarily down. April 14, 2026. First direct talks since 1983. Joint statement issued from both sides. Historic. Prediction 4. A joint Israel-Lebanon statement acknowledging willingness to negotiate. Hit. Confirmed from both sides. This one followed directly from Prediction 3. Prediction 5. Netanyahu survives politically and continues Lebanon operations. Hit. War leaders do not fall during wars they are winning. His coalition was stable. His wartime authority was at its peak. Still in power as of May 1st, Israel continued operations in Lebanon throughout April. Prediction 6. Mojtaba Khamenei remains functionally invisible. The IRGC continues running Iran. Hit. We called this because appearing publicly would expose him to Israeli targeting, in an environment that has already demonstrated it can reach the leadership of Iran. 61 days. 0 verified appearances. AI-generated videos deployed by state media and debunked by Western intelligence. Reuters, April 29th. The IRGC has seized power in Iran. This is exactly what we said would happen and exactly why we said it would happen. Now the predictions that partially landed. Prediction 7. Board of Peace advanced teams quietly deploy to Gaza. Unclear, not confirmed, not denied, no public intelligence either way. This one carries forward into issue 3. Prediction 8. An extended ceasefire of 30 to 45 additional days is agreed. Partial. An extension was agreed, but it ran approximately 2 weeks, not 30 to 45 days. We called the outcome correctly. We overcalled the length. Prediction 9. A commitment to a second round of talks is secured. Partial. The initial commitment was made at Islamabad. Then Trump cancelled the follow-up trip on April 27th, citing, in his words, tremendous infighting and confusion within their leadership. The commitment exists on paper. No venue, no date. We called the direction. The execution collapsed. 7 hits, 2 partials, 1 unclear, now the misses, the 5 misses. Before we go through them one by one, here is the honest summary of why they happened. Every single miss came from the same mistake. We predicted diplomatic convergence in situations where the positions were structurally unbridgeable. We looked at the pressure on both sides and assumed that pressure would produce resolution. It did not. And that assumption cost us 5 predictions. That is the lesson we are carrying directly into this month's forecast. Predict the structure, not the resolution. When the gap is too wide to close, do not predict a bridge. Now the specifics. Miss 1. A Hormuz formula is agreed. Iran gets a coordination role, the US gets the strait reopened. Both sides claim victory. Here is what makes this miss so instructive. Iran proposed exactly this formula. On April 26th, via the Oman back channel, Iran submitted a Hormuz first decoupling offer. Reopen the strait. Lift the blockade. Handle the nuclear question separately. That is word for word what we predicted Iran would offer as a face-saving formula. Trump rejected it on April 29th. His exact words, "The blockade is somewhat more effective than the bombing. They are choking like a stuffed pig." We read Iran correctly. We misread Trump. We assumed he needed an economic win badly enough to accept a partial formula. He did not. He is holding the blockade as his primary pressure tool. That is the leverage miscalculation that drove every other miss this month. Miss 2. Ships begin transiting the strait at roughly 25% of pre-war volume by late April. This one flows directly from Miss 1. If the Hormuz formula fails, the ships do not move. The strait remains closed. Bahrain stood at the United Nations Security Council on April 29th and formally demanded Iran reopen it. Russia and China defended Iran against that demand. The lanes are closed. Miss 3. Oil prices fall from $118 toward $95 to $100. The opposite happened. The UAE announced its withdrawal from OPEC on April 28th. Brent crude hit $126 intraday. The International Energy Agency called it, and we are quoting directly, an unprecedented supply shock. Once the Hormuz formula failed and a major OPEC member simultaneously exited the cartel, there was no mechanism for prices to fall. They could only go one direction, and they did. Miss 4. Trump declares all war objectives achieved. Trump is not declaring victory, he is threatening escalation. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper is formally briefing him on a second wave of targeted strikes as a live option. The posture is maximum pressure, not conclusion. Miss 5. The Baytach timeline is running ahead of the original 2027 to 2028 estimate by end of April. Baytach is still at 35 to 40%, unchanged. This prediction was our most optimistic call of the month, and it was built on a flaw in our own reasoning. We projected Batash advancement as a consequence of Hormuz resolution. But Hormuz resolution was itself an unresolved prediction. We stacked an optimistic outcome on top of another optimistic outcome. When the first one missed, the second one was always going to miss with it. The rule going forward is simple. Do not project acceleration when the conditions required for that acceleration are themselves things you are predicting rather than things you have confirmed. That is the honest accounting. April scorecard. 7 hits, 5 misses, 2 partials, 1 unclear. The structural predictions landed. The diplomatic resolution predictions did not. The 3 May scenarios from Issue 1, 55% probability for a partial deal, 35% for ceasefire fracture, 10% for talks collapse, will be formally scored in Issue 3. As of May 1st, we are tracking between Scenario 2 and Scenario 3. Our most confident call is not playing out. We record that accurately, and we adjust our approach going forward. Framework status. Before we go into the detail of what happened this month, here is the complete map of everything this framework is currently tracking. Every identification, every entity, every system, confidence level stated for each one. RHC next section goes deep on all of it. This is the dashboard. The date. Everything starts here. April 14th, 2033. Confidence, high, unchanged. 22 independent streams of evidence, from NASA orbital mechanics to the ancient Hebrew calendar, to the Babylonian Talmud, to Isaac Newton's personal manuscripts, all converging on the same date without any of them being able to coordinate with the others. This month we are adding a 23rd stream, and we want to briefly explain it here because it is the most important near-term calendar event in the framework. Daniel 8:14 says, "For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary will be properly restored." Daniel 8 is specifically about the temple. The feast most directly associated with temple restoration in all of Jewish tradition is Hanukkah, the celebration of the moment Judas Maccabeus rededicated the temple in 165 BC. Hanukkah 2026 falls on December 27th. December 27th, 2026 plus 2,300 days equals April 14th, 2033. Exactly, to the day. Using none of the same inputs as any other stream. 8 months from today, that clock begins. Mark December 27th, 2026. The prophetic figures the Great Horn, Donald Trump. Confidence, high. The dominant Western leader whose power peaks and breaks. Constitutional exit January 20th, 2029. 998 days from today. The covenant confirmer, Jared Kushner. Confidence medium. The figure who rises not by his own power, through intrigue, confirming an existing covenant with many nations. Special envoy for peace. Founder of Affinity Partners. Executive board member of the Board of Peace. New correspondence documented this cycle. The next section covers it. The false prophet, Sam Altman. Confidence, medium. The figure who gives breath to the image of the beast and causes all to receive a mark. CEO of OpenAI, chairman of Tools for Humanity and the World ID biometric system. Both horns now formally identified, one weakness held openly. The next section covers both, the Great Harlot, 2 candidate framework, Vatican as the primary institutional expression, confidence, medium-high, Chabad Lubavitch as the current operational expression riding the beast, confidence, upgraded to medium-high this cycle. 2 hostile witnesses drove the upgrade. The next section covers them, the GOG coalition, Putin and Russia as the primary candidate. Confidence, medium-high. Erdogan and Turkey as the secondary candidate. Confidence, medium. The coalition that attacks Israel during the period of confident security. currently forming. The most concrete real-time alignment of the month happened in this lane. The next section covers it. The 5-pillar architecture. The framework tracks one integrated system operating across 5 functional layers. All 5 are building simultaneously. All 5 are connected through the same family network. The covenant layer is the Board of Peace. Chartered at Davos, January 22, 2026, UN authorized under Security Council Resolution 2803, approximately 25 to 35 member states, Trump as permanent chairman. This is the political and legal authority layer of the system. The religious layer is Chabad Lubavitch, the global Jewish religious organization with documented operational access to both the covenant confirmer candidate and the GOG candidate simultaneously. Kushner's primary rabbi is Chabad's Washington representative. Putin's personally designated chief rabbi is Chabad's Moscow representative, the same organization in both camps. The cognitive layer is BrainCo and OpenAI. BrainCo is Jared Kushner and Elad Gil's AI for Governments platform, partnered with OpenAI, deploying artificial intelligence into sovereign governments globally. OpenAI is Sam Altman's company, the underlying cognitive infrastructure now inside the Pentagon's classified network. The enforcement layer is Anduril Industries, founded by Palmer Luckey, funded by Josh Kushner's Thrive Capital. Arsenal One, Anduril's Ohio manufacturing facility, is now producing the Fury autonomous fighter jet 4 months ahead of schedule. The Lattice AI platform fuses sensor data from the US southern border to orbit into one operational picture. The UAE Edge Production Alliance is manufacturing Oman autonomous aircraft on Anduril's platform in the UAE. The financial layer is Thrive Capital's portfolio, Josh Kushner's $50+ billion investment firm. The portfolio spans Stripe, Plaid, Affirm, Nubank, Robinhood, and Coinbase, the complete stack of global digital financial infrastructure. Thrive also holds the primary investment in OpenAI and is leading the next Anduril funding round. One person, the cognitive layer, the enforcement layer, and the financial layer, all 3, connected through the same hands. The key network figures: Josh Kushner, Jared's brother, founder of Thrive Capital, primary OpenAI investor, leading the Anduril funding round, the financial spine of the entire 5-pillar system. Elad Gil, co-founder of BrainCo with Jared Kushner, led the Anduril Series D funding round in 2021, the single human node who personally connects the covenant architecture and the weapons architecture. Palmer Luckey, founder of Anduril, self-described radical Zionist, made a secret visit to Netanyahu 8 days before Operation Epic Fury. His weapons played a covert role in the strikes. Pope Leo XIII, Robert Francis Prevost, first American-born pope, elected May 8, 2025, the Vatican's institutional head, currently in open public confrontation with the President of the United States. Confirmed November 2025, he is planning a pilgrimage to Jerusalem in 2033, the framework's anchor year, independently. The prophetic prerequisites. These are the real-world conditions the text requires before the 70th week opens. Current status on each one. Betach, Israel's condition of confident security required by Ezekiel 38:11. Current assessment, 35 to 40%. The conventional diplomatic pathway to Betach may be permanently closed. This is the most significant framework shift of the month. The next section covers it fully. Temple Mount access, advancing. The de facto status quo is eroding in real time. Ben Gvir's April visits, Netanyahu's coordination admission, Rabbi Lior's halachic dispensation. Moving in the right direction. Temple prerequisites, portable altar built, anointing oil complete, high priest candidate endorsed and ready. The Temple Institute formally decoupled temple construction from Red Heifer qualification in February. Red Heifer regressed. All 5 candidates disqualified. No qualified heifer currently exists. We record it accurately. B'nai Menashe, advancing. Operation Wings of Dawn launched April 23rd. First Aliyah flight since 2020. The tribe of Manasseh returning on a dateable schedule. Damascus. Static. No Isaiah 17:1 event. Syrian governance consolidating under al-Shara. Euphrates. Slow burn. At multi-decadal lows but flowing. Trajectory consistent with a second half of the 70th week fulfillment, not a 2026 event. Iran, Middle East. Events by lane. This is where we go through every major development of the month, lane by lane. Each lane covers a specific layer of what the framework is tracking. Raw facts first, framework read second, always in that order. Iran, Middle East. The Islamabad round lasted 21 hours across 3 separate sessions. No agreement was reached. Here is the detail that matters most from inside that room. IRGC Commander Vahidi inserted SNSC Secretary Zolgada into the Iranian delegation over the direct objections of both President Pezeshkian and Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf. That single move told you everything you needed to know about who was actually running the Iranian side of the table. It was not the president. It was not the Parliament Speaker. It was the military commander. After Islamabad, Iran submitted a Hormuz first decoupling proposal via the Oman back channel on April 26. Open the strait, lift the blockade, handle the nuclear question separately. Trump rejected it on April 29. All talks are now phone only, and CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper is formally briefing Trump on what has been described as a short and intense wave of strikes as a live option. This is not a declared decision. It is an active options briefing being formally presented to the president. Brent crude sits at approximately $110 as of May 1st. Intraday highs hit $126 this week. Lebanon. The ceasefire was extended 3 weeks on April 23rd, placing the expiry on approximately May 14th to 16. Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem, April 27. We will not relinquish our weapons or our defenses. May 14th is the pressure point. Everything in the Lebanon lane converges on that date. Covenant. Affinity Partners filed its SEC Form ADV on March 22nd. Regulatory assets under management, $6.16 billion, up 30% year over year. Fund 1 approximately 80% committed. Fund 2 is frozen while Kushner serves in government. His COO stated publicly, Affinity will not raise additional capital while Jared is serving. The August 2026 lockup is the operative signal. That is when Fund 1's 5-year investment period expires, and every Gulf sovereign wealth fund investor can renegotiate or withdraw. Those conversations are happening right now, in May and June. Congressional investigations. House Judiciary Ranking Member Raskin opened a sweeping investigation April 16th. Senate Finance Ranking Member Wyden and House Oversight Ranking Member Garcia preceded him in March. What is worth noting for the framework? The investigators are describing, in legal language and with no prophetic agenda, a structure in which diplomacy and private financial gain are so intertwined that independent observers cannot separate them. Daniel 8:25 describes the little horn rising through Satchkill, Hebrew for crafty dealing, shrewd maneuvering, operating through arrangements others cannot fully pass. A hostile congressional witness is describing that structure, without knowing it. Board of Peace, stalled at approximately 25 to 35 member states. No second plenary has been held since February 19th. No charter amendment, no Jerusalem mandate. Every G7 nation except the United States has declined or not joined. December 2027, when the UNSC Resolution 2803 mandate expires, is the next structural forcing function for the Board of Peace. EA acquisition. CFIUS review is the only remaining regulatory gate. All other approvals are cleared. Shareholders approved overwhelmingly. The JP Morgan debt package is live. Close window, April to June 2026. If this closes, the largest leveraged buyout in history, Saudi PIF at 93.4%, Affinity at approximately 5%, formally locks into the covenant financial architecture. Cognitive. April 17, 2026 is now a date the framework formally logs. Tools for Humanity, Qualcomm, and AuthSignal launched palm-biometric authentication tied to World ID iris verification for crypto point-of-sale payments. This is the first system in history that combines biometric identity verification with financial transaction execution in a single operational architecture deployed commercially across multiple countries simultaneously. You place your palm on a reader. Your identity is verified against your iris scan. The transaction clears. You bought something using nothing but your body. The framework logs April 17, 2026 as the Revelation 13, 16, and 17 infrastructure baseline date, not because the mark system is operational, because the architecture model now exists. Everything that follows is measured against this date. World ID statistics as of that launch: 17.9 million verified humans, 160 countries, 450 million uses. UAE Central Bank biometric mandate. Effective March 31st, all financial institutions in the UAE are required to deploy biometric authentication. A covenant nation has made biometric-linked financial access a legal requirement. OpenAI, Microsoft exclusivity ended April 28. OpenAI products now ship on Amazon Web Services. GPT 5.5 was released April 23. Altman publicly confirmed his timeline: automated AI research intern by September 2026. True automated AI researcher by March 2028. That date, March 2028, is the same window our framework places the Gog-Magog event. Sam Altman's public superintelligence timeline and our prophetic framework independently converge on 2028. Neither was built to confirm the other. They simply arrive at the same place. Weapons. Arsenal 1, Anduril's autonomous weapons manufacturing facility in Ohio, began production of the Fury autonomous fighter jet by end of March, 4 months ahead of the July 2026 target. The ramp target is 150 aircraft per year across 3 shifts. Roadrunner, Barracuda, and a classified program are joining the production line by year-end. The contract stack this cycle. March 13th, the US Army awarded Anduril a 10-year, $20 billion Lattice IDIQ contract, consolidating approximately 120 prior procurement actions under a single vehicle. March, an $87 million counter-drone task order. April 7th, Space Force Andromeda program, $1.843 billion IDIQ split among 14 vendors, Anduril included. April 24th, Golden Dome interceptor prototypes, alongside SpaceX, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. In March, Anduril acquired Exoanalytic Solutions, a firm operating more than 400 telescopes for space domain awareness. Lattice AI now fuses sensor data from the US southern border to orbit, ground to space, one operational picture, per Ynet News reporting. Anduril's weapons played a covert role in Operation Epic Fury. The autonomous weapons company funded by the Covenant confirmer's brother provided weapons for the operation the framework identifies as the Daniel 8 Goat Striking the Ram event. The UAE Edge Production Alliance, 50 Oman autonomous aircraft ordered, running Anduril's Lattice AI platform. Full-rate production targeted end 2028. The covenant nation that appears in every layer of this architecture is now manufacturing autonomous weapons on Anduril's platform. Financial. Thrive Capital total assets under management now exceed $50 billion. The Anduril $4 billion funding round at approximately $60 billion valuation, co-led by Thrive and Andreessen Horowitz, is effectively closed. No formal press release was issued, but multiple outlets describe it in past tense. April 25th, Josh Kushner launched Thrive Eternal, a permanent capital holding company. No wind-down date. The first investment, a minority stake in the San Francisco Giants, framed as assets, with qualities that cannot be replicated by technology. The framework adds Thrive Eternal to active tracking alongside affinity partners, permanent capital in a permanent vehicle. Now step back and look at the full picture of what Josh Kushner's portfolio controls simultaneously. The cognitive layer, OpenAI, primary investor at over $1 billion. The enforcement layer, Anduril, leading the $60 billion funding round. The financial layer, Stripe, Plaid, Affirm, Nubank, Robinhood, Coinbase, the complete stack of global digital financial infrastructure. One person, the cognitive layer, the enforcement layer, and the financial layer. All three. Connected through the same hands. Israel. Netanyahu disclosed early-stage prostate cancer on April 24th. He was treated by targeted radiation in February 2026, during the Iran war, and intentionally concealed the diagnosis for 2 months. He has been declared cancer-free. He has a pacemaker installed from July 2023. The Israeli election is scheduled for October 27, 2026. Late April polling. Channel 13 has former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's new party at 23 seats, Likud at 22. Lapid joined Bennett's Bayachad alliance on April 26. For the first time since 2022, Netanyahu faces a credible challenger with a viable coalition path. The framework requires Netanyahu's continuity through the Batach building window. That window now has an election running through the middle of it. Temple Mount. On April 12, National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir visited the Temple Mount with Rabbi Elisha Wolfson. His statement afterward: "Today you feel like the master of the house here." In Netanyahu's 129-page response to a High Court petition filed April 12, he conceded that Ben-Gvir's Temple Mount policy changes are coordinated with the Prime Minister's office. That is a direct departure from every prior PMO statement on the subject. Every prior response said there had been no change to the status quo. This one admitted coordination. April 29th. Rabbi Dov Lior granted Ben-Gvir a personal halachic dispensation to enter the entire Temple Mount, including zones ordinarily forbidden to Jewish visitors. Jordan's foreign ministry condemned it as desecration. The de facto status quo on the Temple Mount is eroding in real time. Temple prerequisites. The portable altar is built, designed for rapid deployment. The anointing oil is complete, prepared by the Sanhedrin in 2021 and waiting. The high priest candidate is endorsed. Rabbi Baruch Kahane, Sanhedrin endorsed since 2016, approximately 1 week from readiness upon political authorization. Temple Institute Doctrinal Statement, February 4, 2026. A lack of the ashes does not present an impediment to the building of the Holy Temple or the renewal of the public, time-oriented offerings. The Israeli religious establishment has formally decoupled temple construction from the red heifer prerequisite. On the red heifer, all 5 Texas-imported and Israeli candidates were formally disqualified by the Temple Institute in August 2025. The July 2025 Samaria ceremony was explicitly disavowed by Joint Temple Institute and Sanhedrin clarification in November. It used the herd's most invalid animal, The priestly garments were not consecrated, and any ashes produced outside the Mount of Olives are halachically void. No qualified red heifer currently exists. This prerequisite has regressed materially. We record it accurately. B'nai Menashe. On April 23rd, Operation Wings of Dawn launched. The first flight of the year arrived at Ben Gurion Airport with 249 Olim, members of the B'nai Menashe community from northeastern India. 1,200 total are scheduled to arrive in 2026. 4,800 remain in India, expected to complete their Aliyah by 2030. This is the first Aliyah flight for this community since 2020. Revelation 7 names Manasseh among the 12 tribes sealed before the Great Tribulation. The return is happening on a concrete, datable schedule. And now something we are documenting for the first time. The Elijah's Cup discovery. For 2,000 years, every single year, at every Passover Seder table, a cup of wine has been poured for the prophet Elijah, and the front door of the house has been opened. The ritual is based on Malachi 4:5. The framework identifies Elijah as one of the two witnesses of Revelation 11. Elijah did not die. He was translated in 2 Kings 2:11. The framework places his return at Passover 2033, April 14, 2033. For 2,000 years, Jewish families have been rehearsing his arrival on the exact feast the framework places his return. Pouring the cup. Opening the door. 7 more Passover seasons. 7 more times the cup is poured. 7 more times the door is opened. Then the door is answered. Russia, Gog. Operation Epic Fury launched on February 28, 2026. That date was Shabbat Zachor, the Sabbath immediately before Purim, commanding remembrance of Amalek. The feast commanding war against the ancestor of Persia was the day the war against Persia began. The operation's name, Epic Fury, is drawn directly from Daniel 8:7, Great Fury. Daniel 8:5 says the goat struck from the west without touching the ground. No ground invasion, missiles, drones, aircraft, literally not touching the ground. Daniel 8 named this event 2,600 years before it occurred. Putin met Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi on April 27 in St. Petersburg. GRU Chief Igor Kostyukov was present. Military intelligence coordination, not courtesy. Russia has provided satellite imagery and targeting intelligence on US forces. One Russian-facilitated drone strike reportedly killed 6 US service members in Kuwait. Russia has not invoked the treaty, not delivered S-400s, not entered the war. Strategic solidarity without commitment. Turkey condemned Epic Fury, offered to broker Russia-Ukraine talks, and deepened defense ties with MBS in Riyadh, all in the same month. Turkey sits in the Board of Peace while signaling solidarity with Iran. Ezekiel 38 names Togarmah, ancient Anatolia, modern Turkey, 4 times in the Gog coalition. A nation pulled in both directions before the hooks are set looks exactly like this. Next month's predictions. Before we give you this month's predictions, here is the rule we are applying going forward. Predict the structure, not the resolution. When the gap between 2 sides is documented and wide, do not predict a bridge. Predict what the structural conditions force, not what diplomacy might produce. That is the lesson April taught us. We are applying it now. 3 May scenarios. We are giving you 3 scenarios for how May unfolds. The probabilities total 100%. They will be scored publicly in issue 3. Scenario 1. The stalemate holds. 50% probability. The Lebanon ceasefire survives the May 14-16 expiry through emergency mediation. Pakistan or Qatar brokering another short extension. No nuclear framework is reached. Trump orders no second-wave strikes, but CENTCOM continues active planning. Hormuz remains closed. Oil stays between $100 and $115. Batach remains at 35 to 40%. The architecture continues hardening in every commercial lane, while the diplomatic window stays closed. Scenario 2. The May 14 fracture. 35% probability. The Lebanon ceasefire breaks at the May 14 to 16 expiry. Israel resumes sustained operations in the south. Hezbollah responds with rocket fire into northern Israel. Iran formally voids the ceasefire and reasserts Hormuz closure as leverage. Oil spikes toward $130. A crisis-mediated pause emerges by end of May, different terms, from a position of greater Iranian weakness than April produced. Scenario 3. Second wave strikes, 15% probability. CENTCOM executes the strike package currently being briefed to Trump. 5 to 7 days. US combat deaths for the first time in this war. Emergency G20 mediation produces a third ceasefire within 2 weeks at substantially the same terms, but from a position of significantly greater Iranian military weakness. The Batach timeline accelerates sharply. This scenario's probability rises materially if Mojtaba Khamenei dies before a deal is reached and a hardline IRGC commander voids the existing framework. Standalone predictions. 7 specific predictions. Confidence stated for each one. All 7 will be scored in the Issue 3 reckoning. Prediction 1. No US-Iran nuclear deal will be reached or formally announced by June 30, 2026. Confidence high. No legitimate Iranian principle can bind a successor government. The gap between zero enrichment and a 5-year limit is structurally unbridgeable under current conditions. Prediction markets price a deal at 66% probability by that date. The framework says no. We are on the record disagreeing with the market by a wide margin. Prediction 2. Mojtaba Khamenei will make no verified public appearance in May. Confidence high. 61 days and counting. AI deepfakes deployed and debunked. Appearing publicly would require exposing the supreme leader to Israeli surveillance in an environment that has already demonstrated it can reach him. Prediction 3. The Lebanon ceasefire expires without a formal peace agreement. A visible crisis occurs in the May 14 to 16 window. Confidence high. This is the most specific and most falsifiable prediction on the board. Hezbollah has publicly refused disarmament. Aoun has publicly refused direct contact with Netanyahu. These are not the conditions for peace. They are the conditions for a pressure point, scored against those exact dates in Issue 3. Prediction 4. Trump will not order second-wave strikes in May, despite the CENTCOM briefing. Confidence medium-high. The political calculus argues against it. Midterm elections approaching, oil prices already elevated, no clean victory narrative available from strikes alone. If this prediction misses, it means the Batach timeline accelerates sharply, and the framework's forward picture changes materially. Worth tracking precisely for that reason. Prediction 5. Netanyahu survives to the October 27 election date without calling snap elections. Confidence high. His cancer disclosure was managed specifically for continuity signaling. Coalition arithmetic favors holding through the scheduled date. The framework requires his continuity through this window, and the structural conditions support it. Prediction 6. The EA acquisition receives CFIUS clearance and moves formally toward close in May or June. Confidence medium. Every other regulatory gate is cleared. CFIUS is the final hurdle. The close window is April to June 2026. If this closes, the largest leveraged buyout in history, Saudi PIF at 93.4%, Affinity Partners at approximately 5%, formally locks into the covenant financial architecture, a specific, verifiable, consequential event. Prediction 7. Affinity Partners. Fund 2 will not be formally announced in May. Confidence high. Kushner's COO stated publicly that Affinity will not raise additional capital while Kushner serves in government. The congressional investigations create legal risk for any announcement before a formal response is produced. The silence is the signal, scored by whether any Fund 2 public announcement occurs. One thing to watch in May. The close one thing to watch in May, December 27, 2026, 8 months from today. That is Hanukkah, the feast of temple rededication. The celebration established to commemorate the moment Judas Maccabeus cleansed and rededicated the temple after the defilement of Antiochus Epiphanes in 165 BC. Daniel 8:14 says, "For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary will be properly restored." December 27, 2026 plus 2,300 days equals April 14, 2033. Exactly. To the day. No Daniel 9, no NASA eclipse catalog, no Leviticus 26, no Hosea clock, no Talmud, just Daniel 8:14, the feast of temple rededication, and arithmetic. The same address. Every time. In 8 months the Hanukkah lights will be lit and that clock will begin its count toward the date 21 other independent streams have already identified from completely different directions. Watch everything between now and December 27 as if the sequence has already started. Because by that date, it will have. 7 Passover seasons remain. The cup of Elijah has been poured. The door is open. 6 more times before the answer comes. We do not interpret, we decipher, then we watch. See you next month. Thank you for being here. If this gave you something to think about, if the evidence is landing the way we believe it should, please like this video and subscribe to True God Code so you do not miss what comes next. Share it with someone who needs to be paying attention. We are building this record month by month, prediction by prediction, all the way to 2033. You are going to want to be with us for what comes next. We will see you in 30 days.